So here's this little shallow well pump from Harbor Freight. There's what the box looks like. Got this to kind of try out this kind of bigger project that I'm working on. Didn't want to spend a whole bunch of money on it starting out. So it's 110 volt. After the 20% off coupon, it was like 115 bucks or something. And nice thing about it being 110 volt is that for my water system here that I'm coming up with, which I'll talk more about after I go over the pump, I'll be able to run it off a small generator if I lose my power or whatnot. So anyway, how I'm guessing this works, we got a pressure switch here. This I would assume is a kind of a mini version of what you would normally have with your well. Normally they're blue tanks and they have an air bladder inside of them. So what probably happens is here's your inlet. There was a note on here about filling it with water, so this is not a self-priming pump. And it makes another note that you gotta take this little plug off and fill it up with water. So let's say this is running into my house. This is the outlet right here. When I would, the pump is running, when I turn my faucet off, what I'm guessing happens is the pressure will back up to the pump housing here. This here is going to function, I would assume, as both an inlet and an outlet. So when I turn my water off, pressure fills back up in the housing here, pushes down here and into this little bladder tank. Bladder tank will fill up and the air pressure and therefore the water pressure will build up to a certain point. It says, I think it said on the box, it turns on at 30 psi and turns off at 50 psi, and it says to charge the air bladder to, sorry that won't focus there, to 23 psi. Anyway, so when that pressure builds back up, it is going to trigger this little pressure switch here and it will cut the motor off. Then when you turn your faucet back on, before the pump motor starts and it starts sucking into the inlet, the water, the air bladder will push the water out back into here, into the housing and out the outlet to your faucet or wherever else it may be going. So it is cheap, typical Harbor Freight crap. This heat sink fin is bent and cracked there. The tank is really thin. This, we got some damage to this, I forget what you call this, kind of sheathing over the rubber tubing there. Just little crappy tack welds basically holding the base on, but for $100, and it's just to kind of test maybe long-term use for my water system here. It may be fine, but we'll see how it goes. I'll probably put some rubber feet on it before I drill into my slab here. So at this point, if all you're interested in is the pump, you might as well turn the video off, because I'm going to ramble here for a bit about what I want to use it for. So this house that I bought, it was built in '87, and I don't even know if it's probably too dark. Yeah, it's too dark to see, but I've got a well house out there, big ugly brown cement block thing in the front yard. And this well has a couple issues here. There's a lot of sediment. It's a very old well. It's extremely hard water. And there's an issue with either the pump itself, or it could be a combination, or it could be an issue that, comes up because the well is old and there's so much sediment. If I pull off the, there's one of those double stacked water filters in the well house there. If I pull that off and just open the valve wide open and let water pour out there, it's pretty much coming directly off the pressure tank. The pump will come on and it'll run for a few minutes. Now this is in the middle of the summer when we're not getting hurricane tropical depression rains. It's in the summer, and so the pump will run for a few minutes, and then the breaker, it has like a big, kind of a hand breaker in there, will trip on the pump. So it's either an aging pump, or it's caused by the amount of, it could be the well has a really low recovery rate. And it could be all the sediment builds up there as it really draws the water down, and the pump draws too many amps and it trips that breaker. So anyway, I'm not 100% sure on what that issue is. Regardless, I wanted to build this system to A, get as much life as I can out of that pump before I replace it, B, get the big ass well house out of the front yard, along with all the wiring and that blue pressure tank and everything else, and just have a very small cap basically to go over the cap of the well itself, and bring that into my workshop here, because I hate spiders and bugs and snakes and wet damp areas, and that's what I have to go deal with when I crawl into that well house. I would much rather have it inside my workshop here, where everything is exposed, protected from the elements, so I can work on it, change stuff, do whatever I need. So at some point I will dig my trench out there to run 220 and my water line. I will probably come up under the manufactured home on the other side of the wall, and come up enough to come over the kind of little block foundation on my workshop and garage and come into the wall, and then have probably about a 500-gallon tank here. I think I can get one of those tanks for around, I can get the tanks online, but then it's $200 to ship it, or I can go out to Agri Supply and get one for about $500. You see, it all ends up being about $500 for the tank. So the tank itself, I think when I was looking at, was 48 inches wide, which would be about where that telephone line is there. If I leave a little space between the wall and everything, it'll get pretty close to the roof. And what that will allow me to do is I can restrict my output from my well, and I can put a float switch inside the pressure tank. So the well pump will be running on the float switch instead of the pressure switch. And from everything I've read, it's no issue to somewhat restrict the output of a well pump. It will still cool itself effectively. It will draw less on the old well, and a pump that, cycles less will last a lot longer too. So, I might have it come on when the tank is a third empty and then slowly fill it back up. Because I remember reading somebody did the math, but I think it was something like, even if the well only outputted a gallon a minute, you could still get, I think it was like either 1,100 or 1,400 gallons per day out of it, which is definitely more than I will use. And the other thing is, having the tank here will allow me to have plenty of clean water should the power go out, and I can run this little pump instead off my little generator. And that'd be nice, because we do, it's not like I'm on the coast or anything and we lose power, have big storms all the time, but generally once a year we have some kind of power loss for a couple days, hurricane storm related, and as well in the winter usually we'll have an ice storm or something, at least maybe once every couple of years. So just kind of peace of mind, and a cool project I wanted to just do, because I like doing stuff like that. And then that's where this little pump will come in. So I'll have my storage tank, and the deep well pump will fill that tank up, and then this guy will provide me with plenty of water pressure that will feed the rest of my house. And so we'll see how that whole project goes. Of course, that one project has opened up another, million projects. When I looked under my crawl space there, just looking at what I would have to deal with in my water line, because it's a manufactured home, there's no real foundation. It's just there are a couple poured footings that run sideways on the home, from one end to the other. And blocks sit on that, but so there's no kind of waterproofing or anything, and I'm getting quite a bit of water underneath the home. So what I'm working on over here is putting in a sump pit. So, I finally broke through where all this is here. I've just been messing around with the air chisel on it. I just cut some lines with a masonry blade on my little saw there, and just took a little air chisel and been plucking away at it. We got through, but it's taken a long time with the air chisel, so I'm just going to borrow the big the electric demo hammer from work tomorrow and finish this off. And so that will allow me to put in a sump pit here. And I'm not sure, it's all going to depend on, once I dig the sump pit out, how much water I get in there. If I dig it out and I'm you know, getting water flowing into it, I'm not going to mess anything. But if the water is sticking on the other side of where this, you know, slab is poured under the manufactured home, might end up running a small piece of pipe over to kind of on the other side where my little access door is there, so it has somewhere to flow. But I hate, like I said, I hate bugs and spiders and everything, and that, you know, I'm sure I got copperheads and God knows what else under there. So as much as I can do to avoid that, I will. That's why I'm putting the sump in right here. But it also gives me easy access to power. I've got a 30 amp right there on the wall, but I'll probably use that for this guy. It's a 1 horsepower pump, so, you know, I could probably get away with a, probably don't need 30 amps for that, but just, you know, since that's right there, that's what I'll use that pump for. I do have this box here that I could use, but probably what I'll end up doing is just running a separate leg over here, or not a leg, but just a separate power line over here for the pump, and probably put in a GFCI right there for the sump pump, and then that one will have to go on probably on the bottom, because I have this sub panel right here. Come to find, I actually have 200 amp at this service. It's 200 amp service at this house. I've got a 100 amp sub panel inside the house, and I've probably got 100 amps running to here, would be my guess. I don't know exactly how it's split up. I'd have to go out and look at the big panel outside. But before I get too far ahead of myself with a million projects here, so I'll probably run that about the same height as that one is that 220 is running, or 240 is running over there for that air conditioner. I'll run that one on the bottom because I'm going to need to have 2 more probably run over here at least, especially if I don't end up using that outlet for this pump, because one will have to go down and out to the well house, and then another will be used for this pump here. So this will definitely be kind of a work in progress for a while here, but I just want to take a little video. So if anybody's got any advice or experience with this kind of thing, I'd appreciate it. I know enough to get my hands dirty, but I definitely don't know it all, especially when it comes to plumbing and electrical. So tell me what you think. Thanks for watching.